What's up, and welcome to episode 59 of Invisible Walls. I'm Shane Satterfield, editor-in-chief of the site, and today is our final pre-E3 episode. Today we're going to be talking about Sony and the big third-party lineups. Also have a very special guest today. Let's just get it going. We got a lot to talk about. All right, on the show today we have Marcus Beer.
What's up, Toots?
And
Toots?
Toots.
And as you may have guessed by his voice that you just heard, our special guest today is Shane Bettenhausen.
Thanks for having me, Shane.
Thanks for being here, Shane.
Always a pleasure.
Good to see you.
You two bitches
You two Shanes get
I'm
over
sitting in the middle here and I'm getting very uncomfortable.
the Shane sandwich too much for you?
And be sure to sit in for the whole show. He is here to talk with us about Sony and third parties, in addition to a game that he's working on now. Also sitting in on the show today is Daniel Bloodworth.
How's it going?
And Brooks Huber.
I'm back.
Brooksy.
Anyway, we have an awesome show today, so stick around.
Round one. Ready? Go!
All right, first up, we have a very special guest here. His name is Shane Bettenhausen, a.k.a. the Man God. What were some of the other nicknames you've acquired throughout the years?
I think I'll just be Shane 2 today, because this is
Or-
the first time I've ever been on with another Shane. It's going to be very confusing.
Or as we like to say, the other white Shane when we're talking about each other.
I take that as a term of endearment. Thanks for having me here on the Sugar Walls podcast. I'm very excited to be on here. I mean, Invisible Walls.
Welcome, Sheena. Now, just for the sake of our users, people may wonder where you ended up. You used to work over at Ziff Davis on a bunch of stuff over there. What are you doing now?
Yeah, I was over at 1UP and EGM for almost 8 years, and I left there at the end of the year to join Ignition Entertainment. It's a publisher. We brought out some games in the last few months, but the next big release is the King of Fighters 12 for PlayStation 3 and 360, and we announced some other good games like Nostalgia coming to DS and Muramasa the Demon Blade for Wii. You know, it's we're a smaller publisher. You might have heard of them, but big things coming. You know, E3, we're gonna have a big booth. It's a big coming out party. TGS, look for more stuff. But yeah, it's an exciting move for me to go to the other side, the so-called dark side. You know, I've been an editorial for a long time, and I think that it's gonna, you know.
Why did you go to the dark side, Shane? I think everyone wants to know.
It was a tough decision because editorial was great. I loved it. I did it for 10 years, and ultimately I just felt like, you know, I love games. I know the kind of games I want to play, the kind of games that the readers who I, you know, been dealing with for 10 years want to play, and if I can get those kinds of games out to market, you know, in a way, the old-fashioned, old-school gameplay can continue. And if you look at the games we're bringing out, a lot of them are throwbacks to the kind of games we grew up with.
Yeah.
So,
Tell the truth, you went for the money and the chicks.
Chicks.
What is your official job title at Ignition?
I am the Director of New Business Development.
Now, Shane is going to sit in with us for the rest of the show, but first we want to talk about the game that he's here to talk about, and that is King of Fighters 12. You're a big King of Fighters fan, have been for years.
You know, I was a King of Fighters fan. It was never my number one fighting series. I was kind of a Virtua Fighter guy, but I've been with it ever since the old days of SNK, Neo Geo, King of Fighters 94. And turns out there's some big fans here at Game Trailer, specifically Justin Spear, who I have something of an enmity with because.
Now, who's better between you two? You guys have went toe-to-toe a couple times now.
Unfortunately, Justin is slightly better than me.
Wow.
And I'll say it straight up. I mean, I beat you a few times last week.
There's definitely some back and forth. Yeah.
But you come with, like, you know, some serious skills. You really do. And I'm still learning. Like, I'm learning new characters. Like, my Ash Crimson is, you know, a work in progress.
Yeah.
Whereas, when I sit down with you, your Leona, she knows everything. You know crazy moves.
Yeah, Leona didn't change a whole lot.
No.
Mature though. They took all their moves.
That's the thing.
I hold you personally responsible.
You hold me responsible for the fact that she lost. That she
Because,
lost
you know,
her-
Shane made the
Take care
game.
of it. I know you made the game. I wrote a letter. You guys didn't respond.
Justin, as a follower of the King of Fighters, you must know that she lost her Orochi powers along with Iori.
Well, she was killed basically.
A,
but
she
you know,
died. So you should just be glad that she's back.
Yeah.
Sure, she lost a few moves, but she doesn't
She got
have-
one really versatile move, the little arc through the air.
Yeah.
Getting-
How do they
getting crossed up
rationalize
with
that
it or
someone who
finish
was once
combos.
dead
came back.
came back?
It's a game. That's pretty much.
It's funny.
Continuity's not important here.
They
I think
don't-
this is actually outside the canon too, right? It's kind of a dream match intro.
Yeah, so King of Fighters 12 is something of a dream match. It doesn't carry on the Ash Crimson saga that began a few games ago. So yeah, this one, they really went back to basics, and it was more about rebooting the graphics and the gameplay than carrying on the story. So if you're someone who kind of dabbled in King of Fighters, in the last few games, like 11, they'd added a lot of systems to really complicate it.
Yeah, they had weird stuff like, well, the striker stuff and then the wire system. you
Right,
know.
and there's like a judgment bar at the end that like judges how you did and decides who won. Like, yeah, it gotten fairly complicated. Even King of Fighters fans have started to kind of drift away. So with 12, it was the first one for a new arcade hardware, the Taito X2, which is very different than what they've been using before, Adamus Wave. So they spent years on it, rethinking the characters, rethinking the gameplay systems. Like if you're someone who's been playing a lot, like me and Justin, you come here and the way they do reversals and combos has changed. It's a lot more lenient. It's a lot more accessible.
Yeah,
feel.
I think it's a little easier.
Yeah.
Now, do
so-
you think King of Fighter fans are going to be cool with that? Because they have sort of built up their skill over all this time, and now it's reverting back.
I think the hardcore fans
It still
are gonna,
takes some
yeah.
skill. Yeah.
Well, sure. Yeah, it still takes skill and timing, but it is easier, it's more accessible. And the hardcore fans, they're going to be so busy trying to relearn some of the characters that have changed. Like a guy like Iori, I mean, he's one of the main characters in the game. He's lost a lot of his moves too, and they've changed his gameplay style. So, yeah, you really have to kind of like re-educate yourself. But for fans who are casual, when they pick this up, it plays a little bit more like Street Fighter 3. It plays a little, it's just easier to get into. So I think with the resurgence of fighting games this year, a lot of new players will be coming to the franchise. And I think it was a good strategic move to kind of make it easier to get into. But,
Any brand new characters for the game?
well, there's one character who's never been a playable character in King of Fighters, and that's Raiden. I mean, he's from Fatal Fury 1. He's the big grappler wrestler guy. So you've seen him before, but you've never been able to play as him as a selectable character.
Now, how have they done integrating him in with the other fighters, balancing him, and all that sort of stuff?
You have to like the big guys. So, like, I'm not someone who plays the big grappler guys, but according to arcade tests, he's not overpowered. I think he's kind of slow and lumbering, but I'm sure people out there will like him. I'm more of a quick and nimble guy.
I'm curious to know that I played the first couple of King of Fighter games on the Neo Geo where you have the big building block slab of a cartridge that you'd need two people to put into your system.
That costs several $100s to buy.
Several $100s.
At least.
And I mean, there was the price aspect, but the game was also very, very hardcore. It was probably the best fighting game out there,
Yeah.
but it was the best fighting game that never really sold and got overshadowed by Mortal Kombat, Killer Instinct, and Street Fighter.
Right.
So is this a conscious effort to reboot and open King of Fighters to a whole new audience who, have played the Mortal Kombat to bits, have played the Street Fighter, and want something new and cool? Because it was always the best fighting game, but it was only for the hardcore people.
Yeah, it really only connected in some countries, like in Latin and South America. It's
Mexico
Mexico's
loves
number.
some King of Fighters.
It's number
Oh,
one.
yeah.
Huge.
Why is that?
Just cultural stuff. Hit
It resonates. I don't
hit
know.
at the right time. The art's really cool. The characters are different. And if you look at what was happening with Capcom and SNK, there's a lot of borrowing back and forth. If you go through the annals of Street Fighter versus King of Fighters, you'll see characters
yeah.
that were obviously inspired by one another, gameplay styles. And I think by rebooting it to like the 94 and 95 time, looking at these characters you all know and love back in their original outfits with easy to do moves, I think that is the intent, is to kind of reintroduce this, like almost a fresh start for King of Fighters. Because, yeah, like there have been too many, 12 games later, how can you tell one apart from the others?
Now, when can we expect the game to be at retail?
We're looking at July, so no firm date quite yet, but you can get your first chance to play it this coming Saturday, the 30th. If you're in the Los Angeles metropolitan area, we're holding a King of Fighters 12 tournament, which is pretty exciting because most players in America have never played this game before because it didn't come out in arcades here. So it's happening in Hollywood, and if you go online at kingoffighters12.com,
Is that XII or 1-2?
it's the Arabic numeral, but I think we have the Roman one as well. So it's kingofffighters12.com, or also up on the PlayStation blog, the official PlayStation blog this week. You can read about the tournament because we're hosting it with Sony and GameStop. And if you show up in costume as one of your favorite King of Fighters characters,
We will laugh at
I'm
you.
looking to you, Justin, because I know you,
I'll do
you
it.
can pull off a pretty amazing Ash Crimson. I'm just saying. If you,
You're saying I'm pretty.
you said you're pretty.
He just wants to see you in your pajamas, mate.
So, yeah, if you're a King of Fighters fan and you haven't been invited to this tournament, because we've already contacted a lot of hardcore players from all over who are coming to this tournament. If you show up in costume at the event before noon, you'll get in as a spectator. So you can see all the exciting stuff, get a chance to play the game, tons of cool giveaways, exclusive merchandise.
Big prizes for the winners?
The winner of the tournament is going to get his very own King of Fighters 12 arcade cabinet, which isn't even available in America. So
So they'll be getting that right at the
they'll be getting it
tournament?
at the tournament. It's going to be there at the show. So yeah, a winner will walk home with a King of Fighters 12 arcade.
Strapped to their back.
All right, so everyone go check out the website, go and meet the man god at the tournament. Are you going to enter, Shane?
I'm going to have an exhibition match. We're helping Evo tournaments. The guys, Joey from Evo, they do this huge tournament in Vegas every year. They're going to be running the tournament for us. So there's going to be an exhibition match, me versus Joey. His Athena is pretty deadly. I think he's probably going to win, but we'll see.
All right. King of Fighters 12 coming out in July for the PS3 and 360. Be sure to go to their site to check out all the information for the tourney.
But little did they know that the real truths lie in the shadows. A truth written in blood.
All right, next we're going to talk about third-party offerings at E3 this year. Now, I think the landscape has changed a lot over the last couple of years. We're not seeing as many exclusive third-party games for either the 360, the PS3, or the Wii at this point. Almost any third-party game for the Wii has to be exclusive by default. So we're really seeing where they're sharing on both sides. There's a couple exceptions. The new Splinter Cell is obviously coming exclusively to the 360, but otherwise, pretty much across the board, all these games are coming to the PS3 and the 360. So let's sort of do a quick rundown of the big boys. Obviously, Ubisoft is one of the bigger third-party publishers in the industry. Now, another big game, obviously, is Assassin's Creed 2. The first Assassin's Creed was kind of polarizing. I think I enjoyed it maybe a little bit more than others. I definitely looked over some of its shortcomings for the boundaries that it broke. A lot of people weren't quite as generous. Definitely some reviews out there that gave it like 6 out of 10.
Or less.
Or less.
I remember somebody breaking a controller over that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, former coworker of Brooks and I.
It ended up in the trash can.
I actually just played Assassin's Creed for the first time a couple months ago, and I still really enjoyed it. But I think, because, I wasn't on that super hype train of it transforming gaming forever or whatever.
Which it kind of did, though, right, at the end of the day. I mean, has any other game...
The crowd, the way to approach crowd physics.
Crowd running, be able to
interaction.
navigate the environment pretty much any way you wanted to without having a predetermined path you had to follow. I think really no game since then has still done that as well. I think maybe Infamous is close.
But I think everyone agreed that Assassin's Creed had a great concept, and they didn't go far enough with it. Like, they had everything was in place, and then they're like, oh, where does this go? And then, well, what you see is kind of what you get. So with Assassin's Creed 2, they've already established that base. This is the gameplay, these are the graphics, this is what you're doing. So maybe the mission designs will be more creative, it'll be a little more, directed.
The original game felt a little rushed. It's like they put all the groundwork in, and then they just didn't have the time to really sort of like build upon it. It was like the basics are there.
Yeah.
Where's the extra yard?
Yeah, it's like when you go to meet someone for one of your mission objectives, those scenes just seem like we put them together. It's like, stand him here, we'll stand him there, we'll do a little dialogue, off you go. It just seemed, again, like it just wasn't quite
Well,
finished.
and then the whole flag fiasco. It's like if you play that game on the PS3, there was no point in ever collecting those flags.
Yeah, there's no reward for collecting all the flags at all on the PlayStation 3. So Assassin's Creed 2 is set in Venice. I don't think you can have a game set in Venice where he doesn't swim. I think we've seen some screenshots where it looks like he's diving into the water.
Yeah, and there's aerial, whatever combat, or he's got wings on too. So.
Yeah. So it looks like he can glide or drift a ways.
Well, I think the setting is more exciting. I think it's a really cool city. But I wonder, if they're going to go further with the whole future past thing. I felt a lot of people...
We can spoil that at this point, right?
Yeah, it's like the worst kept secret.
Spoilers up.
Yeah, the worst kept secret about Assassin's Creed is it's actually like
It's all virtual.
It's all virtual, taking place in the future. At the end, you go there, and I know a lot of people felt it was underutilized. Like they wanted more explanation. They wanted to do things in that world, and I don't know if that's going to happen in this game.
I totally expected there to be like some escape scene
Yeah.
in the future, and that just never happened.
I've actually seen. I have seen some stories where it's this the past and the present thing again. The past. The past.
Well, it
and
kind
the
of has
future.
to be, right?
Yeah, you can't really just leave Desmond hanging.
And just forget, yeah.
But do you think there's going to be more gameplay in the present this time, or any gameplay?
It would be great if they integrated the two different time periods a little more, because in the first game it was pretty much, they'd flash back there every once in a while to kind of let you know what was going on back there, which wasn't much in all honesty. So hopefully they integrate those two a little better. Let's move on to Activision. Obviously their big game, or its big game, is Modern Warfare 2. Just this weekend during the conference NBA Finals, they showed the full-on Monty. Finally got a really good look at the game as far as in-engine stuff and gameplay is concerned. What do you guys think? I mean, Call of Duty 4 obviously the best-selling game of this generation so far, if you don't count We Play, which we don't. Can they top it? Or do you think at this point people are like, well, I'm just kind of cool getting new maps for Call of Duty 4?
Well, how long do you think the new maps of Call of Duty 4 are going to last once the new game comes out?
They won't.
Yeah, I mean, you can just look at the numbers on our videos. I mean, those things blow up to like mind-blowing proportions. So I don't even understand what the appeal is.
Yeah, I mean, the video that we put up on Sunday evening has already done 800,000 views in like a day and a half.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the biggest game of the year, and it's impressive they're even managing to spin it off of Call of Duty. It's like
Yeah,
it's
they
so
can call
big.
it Modern Warfare 2 and people still get it.
It's so big, it's bigger than Call of Duty now.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, as long as they don't screw it up, just give people what they want. Just more.
Well, I think that's the good thing that we've seen so far is it looks like there is a lot more. I mean, compared to the first game, which I thought had a really good story. They told the story very well. Loved how the narrative was handled. You're always kind of in the game. Very rarely did they rip you out to say, okay, watch this cinema.
But it would surprise you by putting you from a perspective you didn't think you were going to be in.
Right.
Yeah.
And I hope they can continue to do that, but it also looks like there's just much more gameplay variety, unless they're totally duping us with the underwater stuff and the hand-to-hand combat and the snowmobiles and all that kind of stuff.
They say you're controlling the action throughout all those cutscenes too. So
Meaning
you do have
You
you do
control
have
the
the
camera
option
angle.
to make the choice where you want to go. They tried to make it, even though it's cinematic, you're still given that perspective that you get to do what you want to do.
Yeah, I think it's
So-
pretty certain at this point it'll be a huge part of one of the two press conferences, either Microsoft or Sony, or probably both, actually.
Do you think either Sony or Microsoft is going to pony up and try to do something exclusive for that game?
I'm
Yeah,
sure
I'm
Microsoft
sure.
already
Oh, I'm
has.
sure they're just in a bidding war right now. Maybe exclusive maps for the first year or something like that. That would be huge.
I'm sure the bidding was already over. I mean, if E3 is next week, the game's coming out later this year, and I think Microsoft have probably slammed down so much money to get something. I wouldn't be surprised to see Modern Warfare 2 get some sort of time in the Microsoft press conference.
And DJ Hero, obviously their other big game, and then Tony Hawk Ride, probably their two biggest games. We got to get through these quickly. Is there room for another hero game?
An
And is
expen-
DJing big enough?
An
that-
expensive hero game that with expensive peripherals that,
It's
epic
not
fail.
going to be anywhere near Guitar Hero. It's just way too niche.
I
Like
think,
people
yeah.
look at a turntable and like, what do I do with that?
Yeah.
I think there's a segment of the population who is excited. Like, when I saw the people who are associated with this, a lot of the DJs and hip hop acts, like, I'm fans of them, so I want to try this game. I don't know what the price point's going to be. If it's something really crazy, it'll give me pause. But when I see the rumored price for Tony Hawk: The Ride, that gives me reason for concern. Like,
Yeah.
people used to spending $50 for a game, who stopped buying Tony Hawk, started buying Skate. Is a $120 game what's going to bring them back to Tony Hawk? I don't know. I mean, that controller better be awesome.
I don't think they can charge $120 for any.
I don't know if you
game
saw,
with
but
a
that's
peripheral.
the price that's currently on pre-order sites for retail. It could just be a placeholder price. Activision hasn't commented, but if that is the price,
Well, the Tony Hawk game needs to kick ass because the last couple of Tony Hawk games have been
right.
very, very
But if
poor.
it's a kick-ass Tony Hawk game that costs $120, what does that mean? Like, is that
Yeah,
good? Is
they
that
can't
good?
charge more than $100. There's no way they'll get away with
Even
that.
100, that's tough.
I think Activision are entering dangerous territory with their reliance on gimmicks. I mean, they've got these great franchises, but the peripherals are starting to drive stuff.
Well,
It's-
see, here's the thing. I have a different perspective on DJ Hero. I think that they're trying to reach out to the segment of the market that hasn't been touched yet by Guitar Hero
Right.
and Rock Band, because trust me, there are millions and millions of people that live in urban areas, that live in downtown Detroit or North Philly or wherever, that don't give a shit about playing Guns N' Roses. They hate that music. They hate that this game is made for people unlike them. They've been waiting for a game that has music that they care about, and this is it. I mean, they're hip-hop tracks. The only hip-hop tracks you see in Rock Band or Guitar Hero are the Beastie Boys, and we all know that people who live in urban areas aren't exactly huge Beastie Boy fans. They're like the suburb hip-hop acts. So I think there's definitely a segment of the market out there that would like to play DJ Hero. I think their challenge is going to be to make it simple enough that people can play it. Because DJing is really hard.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone here has tried to do it. I've been doing it for 14 years, and I still learn something new every time I put a record on the platter. So I think their challenge is going to be to make sure that it's easy enough that the average person can get into it, but deep enough so that people who really like to DJ can still enjoy playing. So let's move on to EA. It's just like machine gun fire here. We went to their pre-E3 event. They had like 27 games or something like that.
So let's discount
win.
all the sports games first of all.
Right.
That leaves us
Because
with
Let's
those
cut
are known
out.
quantities.
Let's cut out the Sims
Right.
because that's not a game anymore.
You know how many My Sims games there are for Wii? There's like 20.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
can't believe they
showed, like,
franchised
My
that out
Sims
into so many things.
Detective at the event I was at. I was
Oh, they're
like,
making a kart racing too.
We
You're
talked.
really
We
reaching.
talked about Dante's Inferno a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
We can cut that.
Yeah, I'm just curious, are you guys really excited for that, or
I think I have a moderate level of interest for it. I'm a big God of War fan, and they have a couple guys in the
there's a
team.
new God of War coming out?
I know that. But you know, those
By
games
the
only
way.
last about 8 or 9 hours. So when I'm done with one, I'll probably jump on the other one. But
Good point.
there's games like the Saboteur, which they just showed really for the first time to the press at that event, which had been in the shadows for a long time.
That's
Pandemic
pandemic,
had it under wraps for quite a while.
Mass Effect 2.
Mass Effect 2 was there. Battlefield Bad Company 2 was there. The new Need for Speed Shift, as Daniel's mentioned on the show before, is looking really good.
Yeah.
Realistic, which is kind of surprising. I thought they might, create a new franchise for something like that. Mass Effect 2.
Yeah, Mass Effect did really well, but I know even the people who loved it felt like they were promised a lot of things that never quite came to fruition. So
The
I wonder,
combat was always a little bit sticky on Mass
Yeah.
Effect. The combat was never everything that it wanted, that it should have been. And following on from Knights of the Old Republic, the storyline got a little bit unwieldy and convoluted in places, and I didn't have the same love for Mass Effect that I had for the Knights of the Old Republic games.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I made it probably 6 hours through Mass Effect before I quit. I just, for whatever reason, my interest level just wasn't there.
But I'm expecting big things. I'm hoping it's going to be more streamlined in a lot of ways, less clunky, and I'm hoping the combat's better. And maybe there's some sort of multiplayer element in there. I'm still holding out for whether it's a co-op combat system or whatever.
Yeah, my main thing with Mass Effect, I love most aspects of it, but like just the different planets and stuff, they just need some more varied terrain. Like I know the universe is full of bald, boring planets, but having to traverse.
But this is a fantasy land. You can make whatever you want, Why
I'd
just
actually
make
go
it a rock?
I'd go for a lot less planets and have those less planets be way more interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, looks like overall it's going to be a good show from third parties. Can't wait. All right, next is the big segment for the show. It is time to talk about Sony and the PlayStation brand at E3. Obviously, Sony's actually had really good E3s the last couple years. That's not exactly translated into sales, and I think that's one thing we always have to remember is that winning E3 ultimately means diddly squat. Every year, some company wins E3, and then they come out of the gate and they never do anything. Nintendo tanks E3 for the last 2 years. Obviously, had no effect on them whatsoever. So I think we should keep in mind that E3 performances aren't always a harbinger of things to come. That said, Sony's done great at E3 the last couple years. We think probably they're going to do well again this year.
Well, they've had a great start to the year, and Infamous is out this week, and Infamous is
Odd time to release a game, isn't it?
It's a very odd time, but what I will say is it's one of the most fun games in an open world environment. So much fun that I've had with that game since Crackdown, in fact.
Yeah.
I love that game. I'm just disappointed with Sony's lack of marketing for it.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. And this is.
I did see some commercials this weekend watching hockey and basketball. So.
Yeah, but where was the hype building? This is such a cool concept, such a cool, visually stunning game that would translate very well. You're seeing Modern Warfare 2 being teased several months beforehand in an NBA game, a game that's not, that's out today. Why wasn't it advertised a couple of weeks ago, months ago, whatever? I think that Sony are going to come and they're going to have a great E3. They're going to show off all these great games like God of War and Uncharted 2, and everybody's going to be, yes, Sony's fantastic, and then their games are going to sell for again this year.
I wouldn't go that far.
The
other big game is Heavy Rain. Now, we debuted that game last week on Game Trailers TV. Personally, I think my anticipation for that game after the show has dwindled a little bit.
Really?
Did you guys watch the show?
Yeah, did you know what it was? Did you know it was like a pure adventure game?
Yeah. I've played their last game, so I kind of get an idea of how it's supposed to work, and I don't know. It seemed like when we interviewed the guys, maybe it was because Sony's trying to keep it so under wraps, but it just seemed like they kept repeating the same things over and over and over again.
Yeah, one of my last things I got to do as a journalist was go to visit Quantic Dream and see Heavy Rain, and I was really impressed by what I saw and what I heard. And the main guy, Cage, he's a really smart guy, and I think the game is going to be great. But it isn't for everyone. It's a very mature game. It's it's not that action oriented. It's storytelling based. The graphics are very realistic. But I think it's cool that Sony is willing to spend that much money and effort on a game in that genre.
Yeah.
Then Microsoft has Alan Wake. We haven't seen a whole lot of that. I think those two are going to go head to head here at E3 for that genre. But if you look at the bigger picture of Sony, yeah, they have God of War, they have Gran Turismo, they have Trico, they have Ratchet and Clank.
Or are they going to show Trico, though?
You already saw Trico.
Well.
Yeah, but that wasn't
not
meant to be.
debatable.
Yeah.
Or was it?
Something of the year and a
you
half
ask yourself
old.
these questions, like when things leak out, when that test footage of Beyond Good and Evil 2 leaks out, like are these really leaks? Like,
Is it really Beyond Good and Evil 2?
Is it really Beyond Good and Evil 2? But I think there's no question that in terms of pure first-party lineup, Sony has a huge amount of titles.
I agree 100%.
Probably more core gamer games than either Microsoft or Nintendo has.
Well, you can combine Microsoft and Nintendo. Sony has better-looking games,
Right.
higher quality.
Sony has a great first-party lineup. I think the problem facing them still is the price of their hardware, which no matter how many good games you have, it's still really expensive, and the average person probably
And
can't afford to buy
why does
it.
everybody get that but Sony? And trust me, we get it. You know, you're going to lose money if you do this, but look at how much money you're losing right now. I mean,
Yeah.
Well,
your
I mean-
sales year over year have dropped for 4 consecutive months at this point. Like, you have to do something.
Yeah, well, and you saw those rumored slim PS3 that show. So say that's real.
That's
say,
not real.
Say that's
Have you felt the heat coming out of your PlayStation 3? I mean, even when it's turned off. Last night I went to like grab the cables out of the back of my 360 and drape the arm over the top of my PS3, and I felt like it almost burned my arm, and it was turned off.
But
Yeah,
like,
we'll have
say,
to
So
have
how do they
Exactly.
shrink that down and
Yeah.
get the
But,
heat
you know,
out?
we all guarantee you Sony wants to shrink it down. Sony wants to make it cheaper, and when they can, I'm sure they will, and they'll pass those savings on, hopefully, to the consumer.
Well, I
But they
think-
also typically do the $50 price cut, and I don't think
Right.
that's going to get it done.
I don't know if they can afford a $50 price cut right now because the machine is an expensive system to make, and they lost $1 billion last year.
But they can't afford to not have machines out there to sell software for.
So I mean, and this is it. This is
That's
interesting.
where you make your money.
I think this same question was asked of you and me on Game Trailers TV E3 special last night.
Yeah.
And you know what I think I said because I was kind of concussed when I answered it was I think they'll actually strip down the machine and they'll pull out the wireless connector and they'll pull out the hard drive and they might just take it down to a basic Xbox level and then start charging people extra for the bits and bobs so they can tailor it. That's the only way
They can't take out the hard
but
drive.
that's the only way
Yeah, they
I
can't
can
take out the
see.
hard drive.
Well, that's the
That's
only way I can
impossible.
see them doing it in a way that becomes cost effective, lowers the price, lowers the size, and gives them an option to generate additional revenue by selling peripherals. Because they made the very grand statement of putting everything in there. And you didn't have to buy any extra, and it was a very, very laudable, intent. And it's great if you've got one of those machines. But if you're Sony, you end up losing a boatload of money over it, and the software sales are not making up enough on that shortfall. We saw that in the MPDs last month, where the highest-selling PlayStation game in the US sold 91,000 units, and it was Mafia 2, not Mafia 2, Godfather 2.
I think the problem is that they have not done a good job messaging the PS3's capabilities.
Right.
And I think some of the capabilities are so far over the heads of the average guy living in, whatever Iowa, that they don't care about remote play. They don't care about, being able to download a game on PSN and then zap it over to your PSP. All that stuff is so complicated. It's even hard for me sometimes. Like, I still haven't got remote play to work on my PS3. Like, I've tried it a million times. For whatever reason, I can't get the pairing to work. Even just hooking up a headset for the PS3 to play online is a pain in the ass sometimes.
So you don't think they're interested in redecorating their apartments and home with trophies and buying new
I think at this
couches and
point
all
we
that
all
sort of stuff?
realize that home is going to be a monumental failure.
Apparently, Home is making money. Like, people are buying shirts in Home. Like, for the publishers and for Sony, like, it's...
Are they making money, or if
There's
are
a
you,
revenue
are you
stream.
talking about the billions of dollars they've spent in R&D on home? I mean, it's not making money.
I've heard that average people are buying virtual goods right now. I don't know the money. I don't know how much
Well, yeah, I
money
mean, if
is
you just
going
go
into
in there and walk around now, you see like
Yeah.
people all over the place with outfits and crap.
But that's $1 at a time.
Right.
1 billion is 1,000 millions. Think about that.
Are you sure they spent billions of dollars on R&D and home?
Oh,
I mean, that's
yeah,
a
are you
lot.
kidding
That's
me?
a chunk of change to.
Oh yeah, they've been developing it for what, 3.5 years?
Yeah, 3.5 years. But I would
Look
say
at it. Have you gone onto home? It's crazy.
I think to judge the
it
success...
still looks like Second
Right.
Life to me.
I think to judge the success or failure of Home at this point is premature, and I think you'll be surprised if maybe Microsoft has a similar avatar-based social environment coming out for Xbox 360 this fall.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo's kind of starting dipping his toes in there with like the rooms where you can sit around with like other people's Miis and watch videos and things like that. So I can see where they're all sort of heading that direction. I think maybe Sony jumped off a little deeper
Right.
into the pool than maybe they should have with it, especially with the unproven success of Second Life, which apparently their numbers ended up being bloated at the end of the day, and they were not legitimate numbers that they supplied. And
But it seems like Sony's like kind of damned if they do, damned if they don't. Like, what can they do at E3 that will make everyone walk away besides having a great lineup?
drop the price.
But I don't
That's
think
all you
I don't
have to
think they will or can.
I don't think they will
it's
either.
the right
I
time.
think they'll do it at probably Tokyo Game Show if they do it, and it'll probably be a $50 price cut. But that's really what they need to do. And I don't think it's any secret that asking someone to spend $400 for a video game console right now when the unemployment rate is over 10%, that's a tough sell.
Yeah, I think they'll just try to show a lot of games. They probably, hopefully, won't announce any motion controller for PS3. I don't think.
Well, they already have one, right?
They already have one. I don't think the time is right for something to compete with whatever Microsoft is showing.
Yeah.
Maybe they feel they've got a strong enough lineup for this year. Maybe they won't wow us with any major surprises this E3. Maybe they will try and muster through. I mean, everybody knows that Sony's view on the PS3 is a 10-year view, and developers have backed that up. When we had Pete Warnock in, and he said, all the stuff that he sees that the system's capable of. Maybe Sony are going to write this off as a sort of like just we'll plow through with Uncharted and God of War and all the good games that we've got coming out next year, and then we'll look hopefully next year with the market picking up again, people getting back into work, then we can start to wow people. They might just say, yeah, Microsoft, you go off and scream. Yeah, Nintendo, you go off and scream. We're going to tread water. We're going to take another hit this year, and we're just going to bring out some kick-ass games and gradually build the market.
God of War 3 this year, you guys think?
I'm hoping.
I think we're all hoping.
Yeah, I got my fingers crossed.
I think you have a better chance of Gran Turismo this year, but if you got both, that'd be kind of nuts. If they
Really?
managed to get both.
I mean, we still haven't really seen anything of the proper Gran Turismo. I mean,
Well, do you think it's going to look all that much different than Prologue? I mean,
not really, but
the
it's
engine's
like
there,
the
it's
fact
not.
that they're not showing it yet. I mean, it kind of has to be at E3 if it's going to come out by the end of the year.
Yeah, and Gran Turismo is actually a bigger brand internationally than God of War. It's
of course.
It's their biggest brand.
But I think this God of War, with the right PR handling, could actually become the biggest brand on the PS3.
That'd be a huge system seller right there.
It would be Gears of War for the PS3.
Yep.
But what about Trico? Obviously, the big surprise from the last week. That video just comes up out of nowhere. Shane mentioned probably an intelligent leak, so to speak.
And if you go and do your homework, people have seen that video long ago. That video isn't new.
It isn't new at all.
It is
In
not
fact,
new.
someone had tipped me off to it before last year's E3,
Yeah.
and I sort of went out on a limb, and I was like, the game's going to be there, and then it didn't
Right.
show, and I was like, oh, I look like a moron.
Right, because I had talked to people who had seen that video a year ago, so the video isn't new. But I think it is.
But for a year-old
indicative.
video, it looks damn good, doesn't it?
Yeah, and as a direction for that franchise, it's unexpected and clever, and I can't wait to see more.
I think what I can already say is that I already see that there's going to be that emotional attachment between your character and
the rat cat.
and the Griffin or whatever it is, which they've have done an excellent job of creating that sort of emotional bond with the game, which is so hard in our medium to do. And they've been successful at it twice already. I can already see moments in that trailer where I'm like, oh.
Right.
I think it's going to be another one of those games that's going to be for a certain kind of player who really gets it, but I think people like us who've been playing games out the ass for the last 20 years of our life are going to be the ones that really, really love
But
it.
it's funny, everybody assumes that Ico and Shadow of the Colossus are these like hardcore niche avant-garde titles. No, Shadow of the Colossus sold 1 million copies in America, so don't forget that. I mean, like,
Well, it
isn't
did
just
win
weirdos
tons
who
of
like these
awards,
games.
right.
Like, I think if that game is there and it looks better than that thing we just saw, that is a home run that like no other publisher has something quite like that.
Yeah,
That's
so I mean,
that's
a million
unique
games
thing.
it's a benchmark,
Yeah.
but that's not critical mass either. That's not a Halo,
Right.
and that's
Or a Mario or
Right.
something. It isn't.
or a Call of Duty for that matter.
Yeah, I've
All
heard
right,
that.
so let's go around the horn here. We've done this already for Nintendo and Microsoft. We're going to go around and give a letter grade to our hype level for Sony's E3 showing. And I'm just going to skip Marcus.
Why are you going to skip me?
Because I know what you're going to give it.
What am I going to give it?
An F.
Actually, no. I'm actually going to give it a U for unclassified because for the second year, I mean, it's nothing to do with Sony's products. I think they're going to they're going to have some of the best games on show this year. My problem is that for the second year running, Sony's PR department won't even reply to me after 15 emails to actually.
So
let
he's
me
bringing
into
the
fucking
personal
conference.
vendetta into his letter grade. That's
Look, Sony
showing a lot of
fanboys-
journalistic integrity.
I never said I was a journalist, dude. I'm an editorialist.
All right, Shane, what are you going to give it?
Well, I'm giving them an A just because I already know the games that are going to be there, and I really want to see them. And I think they have fewer surprises in store than probably Microsoft.
Well, then it wouldn't be a surprise, right?
Right, but yeah, I don't expect to be like befuddled and amazed by some announcement. Whereas that could happen in Nintendo or Microsoft, things I've never heard of. So I'll give it a solid A, just because who doesn't want to see Trico and Uncharted 2 and Gran Turismo, God of War.
Bloodworth.
As far as hype goes, I guess I'd probably say like a B or a B minus, just because as you're saying, it does feel pretty predictable. I've seen a lot of those games already firsthand. Put my hands on Uncharted 2. I think they may, because that multiplayer beta is going up during E3. I think
Which is crazy.
they may show something that we haven't seen yet. We haven't predicted, like a new multiplayer mode that sets Uncharted 2 apart from the standard shooters.
All right. Brooks?
I'm going to give it a B too. Having recently picked up a PS3, I'm actually really excited to start building up my software lineup. And like these guys are saying, Uncharted 2, God of War, a lot of the titles I'm really looking forward to. And hopefully something new, big announcement. I would like to see them officially confirm Trico or the next big project from those guys. So
I would say my hype level is a C, because it goes back to what you guys all say. Everything is a known quantity, and there are so many known quantities that I expect at the most one surprise at their press conference. Whereas Nintendo could bring out 5, and I'd be like, well, that makes sense because we don't know anything about what you guys are doing. Same deal with Microsoft. Haven't really been in an event in over a year. Really have no clue what's coming. With Sony, awesome lineup, and as far as just rating a lineup, it's going to be hard for anybody to beat Sony.
Yeah.
But as far as my hype level going into the show, I'll give it a C because I feel like I know probably 80 to 90% of what's going to be at the show. Okay, and now for the reason you guys have really stuck around all this time, it's time for us to give away over 500 beta codes for Uncharted 2. It's very simple. All you gotta do is make sure you've registered with Game Trailers and go to the gamerpad for IW Among Thieves. The first 500 people to leave a message there on that gamepad will be given beta codes for Uncharted 2. And there's also another way you can get codes. If you haven't managed to listen to this until it's too late, you can go on to Facebook. Make sure you join the group for Invisible Walls. Then we're going to have a little contest there. So basically, in 20 words or less, you need to tell us why you deserve a beta code for Uncharted 2. The top 10 winners, or the top 10 people who give excuses for why they deserve it, will be given beta codes. So
and they need to post that on the thread that's being created specifically. You message me, and I'll ban you from the group. And I will be deciding who the 10 are because I want some funny, cool answers. But make sure you post it on the thread on the Facebook page, nowhere else, because everything else will be discounted.
So to recap, first 500 people who go to the gamerpad IW Among Thieves on GameTrailers.com, or the first 10 selected to give us the best reason why they deserve a beta code on our Facebook group. You got to join first and then go into the thread and leave your response. Good luck. All right, that's going to do it for this week's show. Holy cow. We squeezed a lot into this amount of time.
I'm getting the chainsaw ready. Half this shit is getting cut.
Hopefully you guys won't miss out on something good. Just a final reminder, it is just a few days till E3. Make sure you stick with us throughout the show. 24-hour coverage no matter where you live or what time you get up. We will be updating with new media around the clock. Also, streaming all the press conferences live in HD, so make sure you check that out. Head on over to GameTrailers.com/E3 to get the schedule for all that stuff. You definitely don't want to miss it. I don't know if we're probably going to try to do some shows next week.
We're doing a show, even if we have to drag people out of the parties and out of everything, but we're going to do a
Nobody
show
here
next
goes
week.
to parties.
Yeah, we don't go to parties.
Maybe to avoid
There
you
you go
guys-
then.
I'll avoid you if I see you at a party.
But we're gonna do the press conference wrap up.
Yeah, the show will definitely be shorter, but we're going to try to get something out for you guys. You're going to be so bombarded with new media anyway, you probably won't give a shit. But we're still going to be there, and we'll try to do something for you. Say a prayer for us as we dive into our 24-hour work schedule of E3, and we will see you on the other side. Invisible Walls out.